October 19, 1982. A Los Angeles hotel room. FBI agents burst through the door to find one of America's most celebrated automotive executives standing over a suitcase containing 55 pounds of cocaine worth $24 million. The man? John DeLorean, the visionary who promised to revolutionize the car industry. Just 2 years earlier, the British government had handed him $120 million to build the car of the future. Now, he was desperately trying to fund his collapsing empire with drug money. But here's what most people don't know. The cocaine bust wasn't the beginning of the DeLorean disaster. It was the final desperate act in a 4-year financial catastrophe that burned through $200 million, destroyed thousands of jobs, and left 700 creditors holding $76 million in worthless debt. This is the story of how John DeLorean's audacious dream became one of automotive history's most expensive failures. Not because the car was bad, but because the money was managed catastrophically. By the time you finish watching this, you'll understand exactly how poor financial decisions can destroy even the most promising ventures. If you're fascinated by these kinds of economic stories, the ones you slept through while they were shaping our world, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And make sure to turn on notifications because we're uncovering the financial mysteries behind history's biggest business disasters. Chapter 1. The Golden Promise. To understand how spectacularly the DeLorean Motor Company collapsed, you first need to understand how high John DeLorean had climbed. In the 1960s and 70s, DeLorean wasn't just another car executive. He was the youngest division head in General Motors history. At 40 years old, he ran Pontiac and later Chevrolet, overseeing operations that generated billions in revenue. DeLorean created the GTO, the car that essentially invented the muscle car category. He had the golden touch. He dated models, lived in penthouses, and became a celebrity in an industry known for boring executives in gray suits. When he left GM in 1973, he didn't leave defeated. He left to chase a bigger dream. He wanted to build his own car company and create a vehicle that would revolutionize personal transportation. His vision? The DMC-12, a sports car with gull-wing doors and an unpainted stainless steel body that would never rust. It looked like something from a science fiction movie. DeLorean promised it would be ethical, safe, fuel-efficient, and affordable at around $12,000. He painted a picture of a company that would challenge Detroit's establishment and bring manufacturing innovation to America. But here's the problem. Starting a car company from scratch requires staggering amounts of capital. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars for factories, equipment, suppliers, engineers, and workers. DeLorean estimated he needed $200 million to get the operation running. That's about $850 million in today's money. Where would he get it? American investors were skeptical. Detroit insiders knew how difficult the car business was. Banks wanted nothing to do with a startup challenging established automakers. So DeLorean looked elsewhere, and he found a surprising partner. In 1978, Northern Ireland's government was desperate. The region was torn by sectarian violence, known as the Troubles. Unemployment in Belfast exceeded 20%. The British government, led by Prime Minister James Callaghan, was willing to pay almost anything to bring jobs and hope to the region. When DeLorean proposed building his factory in Dunmurry, a working-class area outside Belfast, British officials saw political salvation. They offered DeLorean something extraordinary: $120 million in grants, loans, and subsidies to build the factory and start production. In exchange, DeLorean would create 2,600 jobs in one of the United Kingdom's most economically devastated areas. To politicians, it seemed like a miracle. To DeLorean, it was the funding he desperately needed. The deal was signed in 1978, and construction began immediately on a massive 550,000 square foot manufacturing facility. The DeLorean Motor Company was officially born. What nobody realized was that the financial structure was built on sand. Chapter 2. Cracks in the dream from the very beginning. Warning signs emerged that should have terrified everyone involved. The Northern Ireland government's investment wasn't just generous, it was reckless. British auditors later revealed that the deal was approved with almost no due diligence. Politicians were so desperate for a public relations victory that they ignored basic financial reality. First problem: DeLorean had almost no experience running a manufacturing operation from scratch. He'd been a division head at GM, but GM had infrastructure, suppliers, and decades of institutional knowledge. Building a car company from zero is exponentially harder. Yet the British government handed over $120 million, based largely on DeLorean's celebrity and promises. Second problem: the budget was immediately insufficient. The $200 million total cost DeLorean estimated? Wildly optimistic. Manufacturing delays, design changes, and construction overruns quickly pushed costs higher. By 1980, DeLorean was already asking for more money, an additional $17 million injection that British officials reluctantly provided. Third problem: production quality was abysmal. The Dunmurry factory was staffed largely by workers with no automotive manufacturing experience. The region's workforce, while eager for jobs, hadn't built cars before. Quality control problems plagued every vehicle that rolled off the line. Panel gaps were uneven. Electrical systems failed. The cars looked futuristic, but they drove like prototypes. Fourth problem: the price kept climbing. Remember, DeLorean originally promised the car would cost $12,000. By the time production started in 1981, the base price was $25,000 more than double the original estimate. That's equivalent to $86,000 in today's money. Suddenly, the DMC-12 wasn't competing with affordable sports cars. It was competing with Corvettes and Porsches. And it wasn't as good as either. Fifth problem: the business model made no sense. Under the agreement with the British government, DeLorean Motor Company had to pay the Northern Ireland authorities $400 for every single car sold. That's right, the company owed money to the government with each sale. This bizarre arrangement meant that the more cars DeLorean sold, the more cash flowed out of the company. By late 1981, the financial situation was catastrophic. The factory had produced 7,500 cars, but only 3,000 had sold. That meant 4,500 unsold vehicles were sitting in storage, representing millions in trapped capital. Dealers were struggling to move inventory. Car reviewers praised the DMC-12's looks, but criticized its underpowered engine and rough ride. And the cash was vanishing. The company was burning through money at a terrifying rate, sometimes $17,000 per day, just to keep the lights on. DeLorean desperately sought new investors. He approached celebrities like Johnny Carson, who put in $500,000. But it wasn't nearly enough. The company needed millions more, and nobody wanted to invest in an obvious disaster. Chapter 3. The Fatal Desperation. By early 1982, John DeLorean was facing financial Armageddon. The company was $17 million in debt. British government officials were losing patience. Creditors were circling. The dream was dying, and DeLorean knew it. That's when he made the decision that would destroy everything. Enter James Hoffman, a former neighbor of DeLorean's in California. Hoffman was a pilot and a con man with a criminal record. He was also, unbeknownst to DeLorean, a federal informant working with the FBI and D. In early 1982, Hoffman approached DeLorean with a proposal. He knew people who could provide immediate cash through a cocaine smuggling operation. The deal? Invest $2 million up front to finance the purchase of 220 pounds of cocaine from Colombia. The cocaine would be sold in the United States for $24 million. DeLorean's cut would be enough to save his car company. To understand how desperate DeLorean was, you have to remember his situation. he wasn't a criminal. His entire adult life had been spent building cars and climbing corporate ladders. But now, he faced losing everything: his company, his reputation, his fortune. He'd convinced British taxpayers to invest $120 million. He promised 2,600 jobs. His name was on the company. The pressure was unimaginable. On September 4, 1982, DeLorean met with Hoffman, an undercover FBI agents, at the L'Enfant Plaza Hotel in Washington, D.C. He told them he had $2 million in financial backing for the cocaine deal. The FBI recorded everything. Over the following weeks, DeLorean attended more meetings, negotiating details and discussing distribution plans. He believed he was working with sophisticated drug traffickers. He was actually building a federal case against himself. On October 19, 1982, FBI agents arrested DeLorean in a Los Angeles hotel room. They'd set up a sting operation where DeLorean would inspect the cocaine before finalizing the deal. When agents burst in, they found him with a suitcase containing 55 pounds of cocaine worth approximately $6.5 million, a sample of the larger shipment. The arrest was spectacular. Cameras captured DeLorean in handcuffs. News outlets around the world ran the story. Celebrated auto executive caught in massive drug bust. The criminal charges were devastating. Conspiracy to distribute cocaine, conspiracy to import cocaine, and drug trafficking. If convicted, DeLorean faced 67 years in federal prison. His bail was set at $5 million. But the real victim wasn't DeLorean. It was the DeLorean Motor Company itself. The day news of the arrest broke, what little investor confidence remained evaporated instantly. No bank would loan money to a company whose founder was facing drug trafficking charges. The British government immediately froze further funding. 2 days after DeLorean's arrest, on October 21, 1982, the DeLorean Motor Company filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 4. The Brutal Collapse. When the DeLorean Motor Company collapsed in October 1982, the financial carnage was staggering. Let's break down exactly who lost money and how much. The biggest victim? British taxpayers? The Northern Ireland government had invested £77 million, approximately $154 million, at 1982 exchange rates. Some estimates put the total government support even higher, at $120 to $136 million when all grants, loans, and subsidies are included. Essentially, all of it was lost. British auditors would later conclude that the government would never recover more than a tiny fraction of its investment. A parliamentary investigation called the deal one of the worst cases of government financial mismanagement in modern British history. The second victim, creditors. When DeLorean Motor Company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the United States, it listed 700 creditors. The company claimed it owed $40 million. But creditors disputed that figure, putting the actual debt at $76.2 million. These creditors included parts suppliers, contractors, service providers, and employees owed wages. During bankruptcy proceedings, one attorney admitted creditors would receive maybe a penny for each dollar they were owed. The company's assets were sold off for pennies on the dollar. In November 1982, a federal bankruptcy judge approved the sale of all U.S. assets to Consolidated International, a Columbus, Ohio liquidation firm, for just $1.5 million. Think about that. A company that had received over $150 million in funding was sold for $1.5 million. The remaining unsold DMC-12 vehicles, parts inventory, and equipment generated a few million more, but nowhere near enough to pay creditors. The third victim, private investors. Celebrities and wealthy individuals who'd invested in DeLorean's dream lost everything. Johnny Carson's $500,000 investment? Worthless. Other investors, many of whom had been dazzled by DeLorean's charisma and promises, lost millions collectively. The fourth victim, workers. The 2,600 jobs that had been promised? Gone. The Dunmurry factory closed in May 1982, 5 months before DeLorean's arrest, when British authorities put the operation into receivership. Thousands of workers in Northern Ireland lost their jobs. For a region already suffering from 20% unemployment, the closure was economically devastating. And what about DeLorean himself? Prosecutors alleged that he had diverted more than $8 million from company accounts for personal use-buying properties, funding a snow machine business in Utah, and maintaining his lavish lifestyle. Creditors later seized documents from his personal residence in an attempt to trace missing funds. DeLorean denied all allegations of financial misconduct, claiming he'd invested his own money to keep the company afloat. In total, the DeLorean Motor Company disaster destroyed between $250 and $300 million in value, roughly $800 million to $1 billion in today's dollars. It was one of the costliest automotive failures in history. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. The DeLorean story didn't end with the bankruptcy. In fact, the most remarkable chapter was still to come. In August 1984, after a highly publicized criminal trial, John DeLorean was acquitted of all drug trafficking charges. His defense team successfully argued that he'd been the victim of entrapment, that the FBI had manipulated a desperate man into committing a crime he wouldn't have otherwise considered. The jury agreed. DeLorean walked free, but his reputation was permanently destroyed. He spent the next 2 decades fighting legal battles. The British government sued him, trying to recover some of the lost taxpayer money. Creditors sued him, alleging he'd misappropriated company funds. In 1997, the British government settled a lawsuit against Arthur Anderson, the accounting firm that had advised on the DeLorean deal, for $46.2 million, a small fraction of the lost investment. DeLorean himself never recovered financially. He filed for personal bankruptcy in 1999, claiming debts of over $20 million. The man who had once been one of Detroit's highest-paid executives died in 2005 at age 80 in modest circumstances, a cautionary tale of ambition outpacing financial reality. But here's the strangest twist. The DMC-12 became iconic. In 1985, 3 years after the company collapsed, the movie Back to the Future featured a DeLorean as its time machine. The film became a massive hit, and suddenly the failed car was famous worldwide. Today, DeLorean DMC-12s are collectibles. A well-maintained example can sell for $50,000 to $100,000. Rare models have sold for over $150,000 at auction. In 2021, a new company called DeLorean Motor Company, unrelated to the original, announced plans to build an electric sports car called the ALPH A5. Trading on the brand's renewed cultural cachet, the car of the future, it seems, is back again. What happened to the Dunmurry factory in Northern Ireland? After the collapse, the massive facility was eventually repurposed for other manufacturing uses. A small number of original DeLorean vehicles remain in Belfast museums, reminders of the region's brief automotive dream. The British government conducted multiple investigations into what went wrong. A 1984 parliamentary report brutally criticized officials for approving the DeLorean investment with inadequate financial oversight. The report stated, Mr. DeLorean's automobile companies received about £77 million of United Kingdom taxpayers' money and lost most of it within 4 years. The investigators concluded that political desperation had overridden financial prudence. For Northern Ireland, the DeLorean disaster became a painful lesson in the dangers of using government money to chase quick-fix economic solutions. The promised 2,600 jobs lasted less than 4 years. The investment never generated the economic transformation politicians had promised. Chapter 6. The Warning Signs. So what can we learn from the DeLorean disaster? The financial mismanagement that destroyed this company offers lessons that apply far beyond the automotive industry. Lesson 1. Celebrity doesn't equal competence. John DeLorean was famous, charismatic, and successful at General Motors. But running a division of an established company is completely different from building a company from scratch. Investors, including the British government, fell for the celebrity factor rather than examining DeLorean's actual ability to execute his plan. Today, we see the same pattern with celebrity-backed startups that fail because fame doesn't equal business skill. Lesson 2. Insufficient capital kills businesses. DeLorean's initial $200 million budget was inadequate from day one. Manufacturing startups, especially in capital-intensive industries like automotive, almost always cost more than projected. The company never had enough money to weather delays, quality problems, or slow sales. Undercapitalization is one of the most common reasons startups fail. Lesson 3. Poor quality destroys premium pricing. The DMC-12 cost $25,000, but the quality didn't justify the price. Panel gaps, electrical problems, and reliability issues meant the car couldn't compete with established sports cars. You can't charge premium prices for substandard products. The market will punish you quickly. Lesson 4. Business models must make economic sense. The arrangement where DeLorean had to pay the British government $400 per car sold was financially insane. It meant the company lost money on every unit. No amount of sales volume could fix a business model that bleeds cash with each transaction. Lesson 5. Desperation leads to catastrophic decisions. When DeLorean faced collapse, he made an irrational, illegal decision that destroyed everything. Financial desperation clouds judgment. The lesson? Build businesses with sufficient capital buffers and realistic timeframes so you're never forced into desperate, irrational choices. Lesson 6. Government money isn't free money. The British government's investment came with political pressure, public scrutiny, and obligations that ultimately constrained DeLorean's ability to make hard business decisions. Government funding can seem attractive, but it comes with strings that private capital doesn't carry. Lesson 7. Reputation takes decades to build and seconds to destroy. DeLorean had built his reputation over 25 years at GM. One drug bust destroyed it instantly. The arrest didn't just hurt him personally. It obliterated investor confidence in the company, guaranteeing the bankruptcy. These lessons remain relevant today. We see them repeated in every era. Tyrannos, WeWork, countless cryptocurrency startups, and other ventures that burn through billions based on charisma, inadequate planning, and financial mismanagement. The DeLorean Motor Company wasn't destroyed by a bad product. The car, despite its flaws, had genuine innovative elements. It was destroyed by financial decisions that ranged from careless to catastrophic. From insufficient initial capital to bizarre payment arrangements to a desperate drug deal, nearly every financial choice made the situation worse. And that's the real lesson. In business, vision without financial discipline is just an expensive fantasy. It's stories like this where we uncover the economic events that shaped our world while most people weren't paying attention fascinate you. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel because we're just getting started with these financial educational mysteries.